Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Philosophy of Fitness podcast, episode number 62. My name is Haley. I'm going to be your host today, and every single day that you are tuning in, my friends, we have an awesome, fun episode coming up for you today. Today, I am joined with Nick Krol, not to be confused with the comedian that's on Big Mouth, but yes, Nick Krol is his name. He is the owner of RN Fitness, and he also hosts his own podcast, which is called Choices by Nick Krol. And we actually wound up doing a little bit of an exchange. So I went on his podcast a few weeks back. We had an absolute blast. We had such an awesome time chatting with one another. And I learned so much just from speaking with him that I shared a lot about my journey. So I was like, you know what? I'm ready to hear what his journey is. So we had such a great chat. We really cover so many different things that I wasn't even expecting us to go into. Nick is also somebody that doesn't drink, and we have a really similar story of how we gave up alcohol. So we talk about that. We talk about fitness and mindset, staying dedicated, staying motivated, and also how managing money and debt and financial health is really connected to what we do in the gym, which was a really interesting thing that I never even thought before I spoke with him, but he really kind of explains that perspective and bridges that gap so well, especially for millennials, young people, why it's so important to stay disciplined with our money and debt management, financial health, the whole shebang. So it was really awesome. We had such a great time. He's probably one of my favorite guests that I've had. I know I say that all the time, but we just have such an awesome kind of back and forth. So I really think you guys are going to love this episode. Again, we cover so many different topics. So grab a snack, grab a cup of tea, whatever you're doing. If you're getting ready for a long drive, you know what to do, my friends. Go ahead and stay tuned. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Philosophy of Fitness podcast. Today, I'm joined with Nick Krol. Nick, we're doing a little switch up this time. I was on his podcast a couple weeks ago. So welcome to my show now.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited for this. We had such a good time last week, so I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, we had such a great time. I'm going to leave the episode in the description so you guys can check it out. But we had such a nice, dynamic flow of conversation, and I feel like we're pretty like-minded on a lot of things. And, it's so funny even too, hearing your story about not drinking. I was so shocked about how similar our story was with that, especially you posted on Instagram a couple of days ago, you were saying how you looked down at your drink and you were like, why am I doing this anymore? It was so cool to kind of connect with someone. So if you want to kind of share with my listeners what your story was with that, I'd love for you to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I had never really drank a lot to begin with. I drank probably 6 times, maybe a year. And when I drank, I would get drunk. It wasn't just a beer or two. That kind of slowed down. I started getting in more into that, all right, I'm just going to have the casual drink watching a game. And that was still same thing, maybe a few times a year. And then one day I just kind of looked down and had a Corona in my hand. We had just brought our new puppy home. And I just looked at it and I was like, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? I get no benefit from this. It hurts my workouts the next day. And I just stopped from there. And I mean, I felt so much better. I'm very proud of myself for never doing that, being around it all the time. I mean, all my friends do it, my wife occasionally has a drink, and I have nothing against people that do have a drink, but just know that it hurts your performance.
Yeah, it totally hurts your performance. And I think it's also really interesting too, just to know that there's other people out there that have the same situation, because I was so blown away. I wasn't even expecting to have heard that from you when we, first, had that episode. So it was really cool to hear. But even from the fitness standpoint, it so stands in your way. And that was something that was one of the biggest reasons why I kept going with it. Because I had a very similar story to you. Except I was in a concert and I looked down at a champagne glass and I had that moment of why am I doing this?
Yeah.
But, from there, it was I was like, okay, I'm going to just do a dry January. And then I had a transformation challenge at the gym that I was working for. So I was like, oh, I can use that as an excuse to not drink now. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm able to run faster now. I'm able to lift heavier. I'm sleeping better. What's going on? Yep. And I was like, okay, I need to just see this through. And we're almost 2 years later now. And I'm best decision I've ever made. So
same. I don't regret it at all. And it's funny too. I know we brought this up a little bit last time, but just how once you start saying, oh yeah, I don't drink, people around you go, oh, that's really good. Like, congratulations. When I made that post that you were just referring to on Instagram, I couldn't tell you how many DMs I got of people just saying like, dude, this is awesome. I'm so happy for you. Like, I don't either. I had a couple people get like mad. They were like, oh, I can't stand, like, not at me, but like, just like, cause they were just like, I agree with you, man. I can't stand how people just use this as an excuse and this and that. And I've seen alcohol ruin a ton of people's lives.
Oh yeah.
Throughout my life, couple family members, couple friends, like acquaintances, people I've worked with. I've seen it ruin so many lives. And it's just one of those things that, I always hear the people, well, in moderation, which, yeah, sure. Anything in moderation, like, isn't terrible for you, but nobody does this in moderation.
Yeah.
Like, everybody just pounds it. And then they look back and like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I feel like shit. So just cut it out altogether. And like I said before, I was never pounding alcohol, but I cut it out and I don't regret it at all. I'm kind of one of those all or nothing people though.
Yeah, I can tell. That's such a good point though. And it's like, I totally agree with everything you just said of, oh, well, in moderation, it's fine. If you look at the definition of like what binge drinking is, it's actually horrifying. And I'm sure most people would be shocked to know. I think it's like technically having 4 or 5 drinks in one night or one sitting. So most people I know are not just having a glass of wine or whatever. It's like, it's so unattainable to actually be a moderate drinker, like to just be able to have one glass of wine. Like, I was never that kind of person that just would have one glass of something. Like, when I was out with my friends over the weekend or, in college, like, if I was drinking, I was drinking. It was never, it was kind of like all or nothing. Honestly, it was like a means to an end. I'm like, I'm getting drunk tonight. Like, and so, for a lot of people, I feel like, it's kind of this nice flighty idea, right, in your head of like, oh, well, moderate, just, one glass of wine after work, whatever. But most people realistically are not doing that.
Right. And it's unfortunate, like, how normalized it's become and how people look at it as like a coping mechanism, how people run to it, because there are studies out there. And that was something else that somebody replied to me too. Like I said, I got a bunch of DMs about it. And one person was like, it's actually not bad for you. Like, I don't know why you're hating on it so bad. And I was like, explain to me what you mean. And he's like, well, there's studies and medical things of like, if a glass of wine a day is good. And I'm like, yeah, that's not what I said. Like, alcohol in general just isn't good for you. Because the general use of alcohol is Friday night, Saturday night, getting torn up, maybe even Thursday, Friday, and then a Saturday, and then a day party on Sunday, like, that's the average person's alcohol consumption, alcohol use. And then you feel like shit all week.
Yeah, it's like, it's not even worth it if you're someone too that's really serious about your fitness goals. It sets you back, not even from just being hungover for, a day or 2 or 3 if you like really went like too far. Like, it just hinders your performance in so many ways and gets in the way of your recovery. And there's so many studies coming out now about the negative effects of alcohol. And there was something I wanted to circle back to you about. I remember you posted a poll on your story like a couple days ago about, people's opinions on drinking. And you said that you were surprised or like shocked. Were there a lot of people that said that, like, the flip side of it, that they were like, drinking's good for you? Or
so how did I ask that? I think I said, I'm going to take 2 seconds and look this up, because I don't want to screw that up, because I was surprised at the result. Just how people responded. I thought a lot more people were going to disagree with me than agreed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was like 75%. And when I looked at that, I think I almost have it here. I'm very sorry for the delay,
that's okay. Take your time.
So I said, alcohol is a waste of time, money, and brain cells. And then I put at the bottom, agree or disagree. 71% of people agreed with that and 29% disagreed.
Wow.
And I thought off the bat that like that was going to be the other way. Like, I was expecting 21% to agree and 79% to disagree. But I was very happy to see that. It definitely, and some of the people that hit agree, they drink, like, I know, because they're my friends or whatever, and I see what they're doing, but they still agree to that. So if you're one of those people that would agree to that and you still drink, my question to you would be why? Like, what are you really benefiting from this? What do you get out of this? Is it worth it at the end of the day? For me, the answer was no, even if it was just a few beers, because my workout was always more important than the alcohol. So for me to go and have a couple drinks with family or friends and really get nothing out of it besides have a bad workout the next day or next couple days, for me, it would be even 2-3 days sometimes off of a couple beers. So for me, it wasn't worth it. And I just decided to cut it out. I I can't speak to everybody, but I can speak to my own experience, and I have no intention of drinking again.
Yeah, same here. I mean, it's so interesting that so many people agreed with that, because I feel like people are self-aware enough to know that it's bad, right? I've had people reach out to me saying that they want to stop, and they still do it. So it's like, I feel like just as a society, it has such a chokehold over us because it's just so normalized. And even kind of what you were saying or hinting at is like, question why you're doing it, right? Sit back and think, okay, why am I even doing this in the first place? For me, social anxiety was a huge part of it. Like, it was just what I did to kind of like fit in, to relax, to be like a part of the crowd, part of the party. And once I started to kind of like deconstruct that belief of like, okay, I don't need that to have fun. I don't need that to be more outgoing, or to be more of myself. It actually makes you less of yourself, the more drunk you get. So to anyone listening, just ask yourself, like, really take a step back at like, why are you doing it? Even if your friends, if anybody else wasn't in the equation, if you were just like talking about yourself, like, why are you doing it? What is it for?
And I would say that all of the quote benefits, like the answers that people will give to that, confidence is probably the biggest one that I think I hear from, like, especially like some of my single friends. They're you don't get it, you're married, like you're not trying to pick up girls. I would argue, and they're right, I haven't been there, but I would argue the point of, if you want confidence, start working out. That is the biggest confidence booster that you can possibly do, and it's so good for you. I can't think of a negative side effect to working out. Those are the things that you can do. And I don't know what other answers people might have to that, but I think that's probably the top one. And even the other answers, I would argue that working out would probably solve that problem. I have a weird kind of philosophy, and it's, if you have a problem, working out will solve it, really, no matter what it is. And I truly do believe in that.
That's a great philosophy, though. I mean, the more you think about it, like it can connect to any area of your life. And that's actually the first time I've heard someone talk about, the confidence side of drinking, and anything that people would say, oh, it helps you relax, or it helps you be more attractive, like whatever, kind of BS people come up with. Working out is probably what's going to actually do it for you, because then you challenge your limits, you get more confident in yourself, you get more confident in who you are. And it's kind of just like this illusion, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm drinking to make myself, like you said, single people, trying to get confidence to go up to someone at a bar. Like, what if you started working on yourself and improving your health and feeling really comfortable in your own skin, so that you can just be sober and be like, damn, I'm an awesome human. Like,
yeah, right. I totally agree. And that's one of those things where if you have confidence from exercise, and you're confident that way, because you can't take the alcohol confidence into your job or into a job interview. You can't take that with you. They're going to be like, this guy's a drunk, get out of here. But if you're confident from natural things like working out, and you show up to a job interview or whatever your situation may be, that you can't rely on alcohol to be confident for, you're going to be locked in, because you're just a confident person now. And speaking more to that, alcohol solves most of your problems. I mean, the biggest one that it ever solved for me, I never really had a quote money problem, but just teaching me the discipline on how to manage money better was 100% from the gym. The gym instilled discipline, confidence, all these different things that apply to real life very, very well. And, that's my path, my story. I'm sure there's other ways that other people have learned from that, but for me, the gym pretty much made me who I am.
Yeah. Can you go into the money side of things a little bit more? Because I know we kind of touched on it on your podcast, but I'm curious to hear, like, when was there a switch for you in your mind where you were like, okay, everything I'm learning here could be applied to my finances and to debt prevention and to kind of setting myself up for success?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start the first time I ever got wicked confused about money in my life. I was like 17 years old, and my mother was explaining to me what a credit card is and how to use a credit card and why I, quote, need a credit card to build my credit score, in quotes, as well. And I looked at her and I said, hold on. So you want me to get this little thingy, swipe to pay for something, not pay it back all the way, pay 25% more for it with somebody else's money, when I could just pay cash? Like, say something's $1,000 and I just give them $1,000 in cash, 25% of that is $250. So now I'm paying $1,250 for the same item. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, well, it's to build your credit score. I was like, well, what the hell is a credit score? Like, what is this bullshit? Like, what are we talking about right now? Credit score. And, eventually I looked it up. I understand it now, and the biggest thing that I think I hear from people the most is like, oh, well, you're going to need a good credit score to buy a house. I never had like a bad credit score. I still have a card that I swipe for groceries and stuff, and I pay it off every month, and I just get the points, the cash back from it.
Yeah.
But when we bought our house, I can assure you it was not the credit score that he was concerned about. It was the income and the amount of money in our bank account that he was like, okay, sure, whatever you guys need.
Yeah.
Like he looked at it, of course, but he cared. The loan officer, especially the one that we used, cared way more about how much money we were putting down and what our monthly income was, what kind of jobs we had. Was it stable? Was it not? And that was the stuff that really mattered in buying our house. To kind of back up a little bit there, though, when I learned discipline with it, I never had debt. I never went into debt because of that conversation with my mother. I was like, this makes no sense. I bought my first car in cash. It was a hunk of shit. I still drive a hunk of shit now. Like I have another car that's a little bit nicer for the weekends, but I still drive a hunk of shit. Like I save money on cars, stuff like that. But when my wife and I got married, she went to college. So she had a little bit of student loan debt. And I have been in the mindset of I want a house since I was like 15 years old. And I didn't go to college. I got into the real world at 18 and was saving and saving. And my uncle introduced me and my wife to this guy named Dave Ramsey.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave Ramsey's just kind of like he's got these 7 baby steps to quote financial freedom or financial peace. And it's basically like, save this much money, then get yourself out of debt, and then save for a house, and et cetera, et cetera. Pay cash for all your stuff. Don't use credit cards. Don't use car loans. Like if you can't buy it in cash, you can't afford it. I really liked and believed in those principles. And like, as I got older and started having more adult money and realizing, wow, I really want more things. Like my father always tried to get me to buy a brand new truck when I turned 18, but I knew I wanted a house more. And to keep the discipline in that, it came from working out, because I was so disciplined and knowing, hey, got to go to the gym. It would have been very easy for me to take 10 grand out of a bank account and then make a minimum payment on a brand new truck and have that payment for the next 7 years. I would have just paid it off like a year ago. So that was where the discipline came in. Then my uncle kind of showed us Dave Ramsey, and we made a big decision to pay off her student loans in a lump sum or to use that money as a down payment on a house. And we paid off the student loan, and it was probably the best thing we ever did, because we had no payments ever again for the rest of our lives besides our mortgage now.
Yeah. That's huge, by the way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's a choice, right? Like the name of my podcast is Choices, because life is all about choices. We chose to make that decision. It was probably the hardest thing we've ever done. I mean, it wasn't like $10,000. You know what I mean? It was like $40,000. It was $40,000. And to watch you save up for that amount of money for years and years for a house, and then to almost reset, like go back down, like pretty low. It was painful, but it was a choice we made. And it was one of the best choices we could have made, because it was that mindset of, okay, we just have to be disciplined now. We have to know, don't go back into debt. Don't just buy whatever you want. Like we both want expensive things, who doesn't? Like cars are fun, trucks are fun, all that stuff's fun. But if you can't pay cash and afford it, then you can't afford it. In Dave Ramsey's terms. And I agree with that. I'm a big believer in that.
I also live by that. I didn't even know that came from him, but my parents had always kind of taught me that if you can't afford it, don't blast out your credit cards buying it. And that's helped me save a lot of money. And I know some people, like I know some of my friends that have over $100,000 of like student loan debt, which is like insane. And and it's unfortunate too, because some people who change their career path, like I also have student loan debt, I'll be honest, and I am not doing what I went to school for. So, it's something that I'm going to have to deal with, but making priorities and having a sense of discipline with it of like, okay, do I want this fancy thing now, or do I have like a long-term vision in mind of what I'm working towards? And I know that it's going to be more worth it if I hold out. Like for you with your truck, you knew it was going to be worth it for you to hold out because you wanted a house like so badly. And I think that's so connected to just the philosophy of working out in general, because you could say in the moment, think of it like a cheat meal, or like, like a big, like, I don't know, somebody's like, go on a weekday cruise and like eat whatever food you want, or like reach your goal by the end of the year. And it's like, okay, well, there's this immediate gratification, but I know that I have this long-term goal, this vision that I'm working towards so diligently. Like, let me not throw away my progress. Let me just hold out and keep going, because that's what's going to keep you on track. The discipline is like, Oh my God, discipline is such a huge thing. And I think that motivation and discipline kind of work in place of each other, because we can't expect ourselves to be motivated all the time. And this is something that I've talked about on here and in general. It's like motivation is so fleeting. Like you're never going to feel 100%, ready to get after your goal every single day, or feel like every workout's going to be your best. Like there's going to be times when you doubt yourself. There's going to be times when you're like, oh, I'm tired. Like this really isn't going to be my best lifting session, whatever it might be. But it doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean you're like, okay, I'm just going to throw in the towel. Like screw this. Like I'm done with the gym shit. Like, no, like you have to have that long-term vision. And I think that's why discipline is so important. So it's really interesting hearing your perspective too, because I've also never really, seen it from the lens of the finance thing, which I think is really important too for people in our generation to understand how important financial discipline is, especially in this day and age with how crazy, the world has been like the last few years. It's like, is huge. And I feel like they don't teach us that in school, right? Like nobody teaches you that in school. So,
and the crazy thing is people don't teach you that, period. It's not just in school. Like, I think Dave Ramsey gives this statistic a lot. I think 80% of America is in like debt or doesn't have $1,000 saved. Like it's pretty crazy how unfortunate there isn't even really like a spot to put the blame on. Like I'm a big believer in blaming yourself for everything. Like you're in the situation because of you.
Choices, right?
Yeah, choices, exactly. And there's people that unfortunately come into the world and kind of start behind the 8 ball a little bit, and I get that. But just like working out, where you start in life is almost like your genetics. It's a factor, but not a deciding factor. I can't stand when people tell anybody anything about, oh, that's because his genetics or because her genetics.
Yeah.
Like, genetics, yes, it plays a factor, but not a deciding factor. It's not enough for you to blame somebody's genetics for why you don't look as good as them or why you're so far behind or ahead of them. People will disagree with this, but we all have opportunities every day. Some are large, some are small, but when we're faced with these opportunities, you have a choice to make. And one of the biggest things that my wife and I are doing right now, one of our biggest financial goals is to own our house. And to do that, we have to put double 2.5 times is the number. It's 2.5 times the actual mortgage payment every single month for the next 6 years. So that doesn't give us a ton of money left over to play with, to go out, to buy the things we want to buy. So we have to have a strict budget. And that comes back to the discipline, right? Because there's months where I go to make that payment and the thought of, I could really use this extra money to buy a new piece of gym equipment or something like that, and those are the times where discipline comes in and it's like, hey, remember when you're 30, this is going to be awesome. And a point I want to make real quick too, that's so important is a lot of people like to say, well, what if I die tomorrow? What's the point in paying off all this debt or what? Because Dave Ramsey's thing is like, suffer for a year or two, get yourself out of debt. Don't buy anything nice. Don't see the inside of a restaurant unless you're working in one. Suffer for 1 or 2 years, get yourself out of debt, meaning you throw everything you have at your debt and then live the rest of your life happy. And my father's one of these people. He goes, what if I die tomorrow? And I have a follow-up question to that. What if you don't? What if you just live your whole life going through that cycle, paycheck to paycheck, payment to payment every single month. And every month you look at the end of the month and you've saved no money. You've gotten no closer to your goals. You've just kind of bought Starbucks or whatever people buy.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think it also kind of like the cycle of debt is just, it's like this bottomless pit, because I know, friends of my family and even some of my friends where it's like, they're just clawing their way, through life. And it's like, you just get further and further into it. And it's like it's like a monster. It's like the more you kind of just let it sit there, the bigger it gets. And it's just becomes this like, daunting thing. And I think also just from like an energetic standpoint, I was kind of thinking of this as you were talking about it. Like, if you're someone that's constantly in debt and you're not doing anything to get yourself out of it, it also puts you in a scarcity mindset, which I think is a really damaging place to be in, just like vibrationally, if you're looking at it from like the law of attraction in terms of attracting abundance into your life. If you're someone that's like, I'm in debt, like I don't have enough money to do this. I'm in the scarcity mode of like, oh, but I don't even want to try to like pay it off. I'm just going to live in the moment and spend what I want because it's such a problem anyway. Like, I feel like that's such a bad mindset to be in, because like you said, what if you don't die tomorrow? Like, what are you going to do, 5 years, 10 years from now? And I know it's a hard conversation for people to have. And for people in our generation to think about like the long-term vision, especially with how crazy the world's been. But even for me, that's something that I'm trying to do, because I'm very much like a live in the moment, kind of person. But I'm like, also like, we got to have like some kind of long-term vision or something to work towards.
You got to find that middle ground. It's so important to find that, because, I say to myself all the time, what am I going to not enjoy my life until I'm 30? Like, what, so we do things like my wife and I, we're big, like I'm a huge homebody. I mean, I
am too.
Things that we enjoy, I'll spend money on. We have a very nice home gym. We have a good gun range in the yard. Like, those are things that we enjoy, that we spend money on, but those are a one-time purchase. It's not like we're taking out a loan to buy equipment or to rent machinery to dig out the yard, or, any of those things. It's pay for it, be done with it. And it's one thing at a time, one piece at a time. I wish I could find a picture real quick of my gym when I started it. It was a terrible looking bench, one shitty little mirror, and
it looks so good now. By the way, I'll try to insert a picture so people can see, because it looks amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but that was years in the making. I mean, that was like 2.5, almost 3 years of just saving and buying like one thing at a time, because we had these goals, because we knew, because when we started, we weren't in our own home yet. Like, we were renting at the time. So when we started, I was like, well, I'm going to buy one thing here, one thing here, one thing here. And every month it's just kind of accumulated. And, it's one of those things that'll never be done, right? Like, that's your hobby, that's your passion. Like, it's never going to be finished, but it's come so far and it looks good now, and we're very happy with it. So those are the kind of things that now we have that every day, instead of the need to get out of the house, right? I hate when people say, people put a vacation on their calendar and they look forward to it for 2 years. I couldn't imagine like just waiting, going to Monday to Friday at your job, dragging your feet, hating yourself all week long, enjoying the weekend, and then hating yourself all week long, just to look forward to a vacation 2 years from now, because I need a break or I need to escape. Like, make your life a life that you want to live. Make your life something that you're happy to come home to. I say to my buddy, and I have pretty deep conversations a lot. I say to him, if I died tomorrow, like, I would say I'm happy with my life. I'm happy with the way things are going. Obviously I have a lot bigger goals that I'd like to accomplish, but I could die happy. I'm not dying in some miserable rat race where I hate my life every day.
I love that idea of making your life something that you don't want to escape. And I so, like resonate with that on a soul level. Cause I think I told you when I came on your show, I went to college, for communications and English, and I had this whole trajectory of what I was going to do. I interned at Pfizer. I was like, oh, corporate world, here we go. I'm going to go work in the city. And I had that job, and I found myself in that position of like staring at the clock of like, okay, the weekend's almost here. The happy hour's almost here. Like, the weekend's almost here, whatever. And it's like, I literally was like, I cannot picture doing this for the next 40 years. Like, this is not what my life is supposed to be. I can't imagine just like being a sheep, just like going, trudging through the subway, trudging to work every day, living for my weekends. Miserable. And it's like, at what point do you say to yourself, okay, is it worth it for you to stay in that rat race, or is it worth it for you to take the risk and figure something else out? And for me, it's been so worth it, taking that risk. It's just like, and I also like, I feel like too, is making your home a sanctuary and just making your space a place where you feel so comfortable and so at ease that you don't feel like you need to just like run away from your life. Like, especially the pandemic has made me do that, like with even my bedroom and like my space, like just making it as cozy as I want, and like treating myself to little things around the house. Cause I am also a homebody. Like, I'm such a hermit. I don't go out to bars and clubs. Like, that's not fun to me. So I'm like, I like, sitting in my room and like reading, watching, movies, whatever. So I'm like, why wouldn't I make this space as comfortable as I want it to? Because I'm not wasting like $100 a weekend on drinks or Uber or like going out to bars and clubs. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take that money and put it where I want to. And something else interesting that I'm just thinking about here is just like the idea of like brick by brick, kind of like getting to where you want to go. Like, obviously with your fitness goals, that's, a thing for sure, right? It doesn't happen overnight. And I think even too, with the idea of saving and also paying something off is just like brick by brick. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like you said, it took you years to get your gym to where you want it. Maybe if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, how am I going to start saving money? Maybe if you get Starbucks every day, like cut that out. Like, my God, you're saving what, like $7 a day? Like, I mean, that shit's ridiculous.
Yeah. And something else, you made like three things that I want to touch on real quick. One of them being people that get stuck in that corporate world or some sort of job that has a pension or a good retirement plan, something like that. You know, I hate when people say, oh, pension. You know, pension, if you can get one and you earned one and you're happy doing what you do every day, I'm happy for you. Congratulations. But a lot of people, they just count down the years left until they get their pension. If you invested your money in good growth stock mutual funds, a pension, you would laugh at the money that you would make from a pension when you're 65. You know, like it wouldn't even be a thought in your mind. And unfortunately, people just don't realize this. Like people don't understand. Investing is the eighth wonder of the world. You know, and I invest. I encourage everybody to invest. It's just, it doesn't even make sense, honestly. I mean, like you'll spend money on a scratch ticket, put that and lose it. How about you put that $30 in a Roth or even an individual mutual funds and just watch it grow over the course of the next 5-10 years instead of throwing your money away on a $30 scratch ticket that you're not going to win, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing you said too was take the risk. Honestly, I mean, yes, absolutely. Like you have to take risks in life, but at the same time, it's not even that much of a risk if you play it right. If you don't have debt, there's nobody holding you back, right? And that's why I encourage people to get out of debt, because you can make your home whatever you want it to be. You can choose to go to work if you don't have debt. You know, my wife and I have big goals. So that doesn't mean that I can just quit or she can just quit. Like we have to pay this house. And then from there, I want to open my own facility and stuff like that. But if you don't have debt and the amount of debt we have now, if we wanted to just make our minimum mortgage payment, we make it very like clear to our employers. We don't need this job. Like this is something that we're here because we want, and et cetera, et cetera. You know, there's a big difference in people that need to be at work and people that want to be at work. And it's one of those things that debt is the indicator of that. You know, if you have a ton of debt and you're strapped every single month, you don't have a choice. You have to show up, you know, and that mentally, humans love control, right? We all love being in control. And when you don't have control, your employee, like if a boss came up to my wife and was like, you suck, we effing hate you, she would go, all right, see ya, I'm done, you know? And we'd go, all right, well, I guess you're going to find a new job. Like there would be no, stress from this and that. It would just be, okay, we'll move on, you know? And that's all because no debt. And I just encourage everybody to get out of debt, start investing, and you'd be amazed at the things that you could do. And I forgot the third point. I think it was on the last thing you said.
I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, I go off on rants sometimes.
No, it's okay, because I have like a few things that I want to say from what you said. And I just want to say that I think it's such wise advice, especially for people in our age group, to be sharing what you're sharing, because I feel like none of my friends are even thinking about this kind of stuff, like long-term, you know, financial health and getting rid of debt. And something else too that, you know, I think about, it's like if you had money sitting in the bank account, it's just collecting dust, basically, right? If it's just kind of like sitting there in your savings, you're not investing it in anything. Why wouldn't you want to give that a chance to grow and multiply? Like you said, even if it's like $30 or $50.
It's actually losing money, like per inflation. If you have like, it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, and financially at least. We saved up a very good chunk of change to put a down payment on our house. And before I continue that, I want to hit on the other thing you said too, how nobody talks about this. And this is another thing my friend and I talk about a ton, is how it's shunned and shamed to talk about finance and personal finance. Yeah. And that is the reason why we have such a problem. Tell people how much you make. Tell people what you do. Tell people your financial goals. You're not an asshole for it. It's good to have those conversations. We're adults. Money's a thing. Yeah. Money doesn't make the world go round. Money doesn't buy happiness. Money makes you more of what you already are. If you're an asshole, it's just going to make you a bigger asshole. If you're a great guy, it's just going to make you a better guy. But it certainly isn't going to buy you happiness, but it's going to alleviate stress. Back to my point that I kind of forget what I was trying to make there. What was I saying?
Well, I mean, I agree with what you said about, you know, money is not going to really like change you at your core, right? It's like whatever state you're in now. If you think, oh, well, if I just had this much money, then I can do this, or then I can do that. Well, if I had this much, then I can be happy. Like that's something else. That's like kind of a tangent going off of what you said. But, I feel like at least from like an energetic standpoint too, of like, if you're someone that's, I don't know. I think about it, if you're someone that's trying to start a business, or you're trying to, you want to be a coach or something, it's like, oh, well, if I just earned this much money, then I can start doing this, or then I can pursue this as a hobby. It's like, find ways to just go for it anyway, and just like trust your process. Honestly, I think taking financial risk with that kind of stuff is rewarding too, and trusting that you're going to make a return on the investment. Like for this, like investing in good podcast equipment for me, or like, investing in someone to help me, like, and I'm trusting that that's going to, kind of take me to the next level. So I think risk is a part of it too. And even risks with investing, like even if it's, I don't know if you're into crypto at all, but like really risky, areas for some people can have a lot of payoff. So do you do crypto at all or no?
Very little. I think I have like a few $100 in crypto.
Yeah.
I like to, I don't know it. And I like logic, right? And there's no logic to crypto.
Makes no sense.
I have friends that are extremely like deep into this. I mean, they've made tens of thousands of dollars off crypto. And I asked them, what happens if everybody tries to liquidate their Bitcoin? Like there's no answer, there is not enough money to pay the people that it doesn't make any sense at all. So I tend to stay away from it just because it's
very hard to conceptualize. Like,
yes. And there's no logic to it, and people don't really give a shit whatever makes them rich, but I don't know. I just don't trust it. It could all tank tomorrow. It's one of those things. It's not backed by anything. It's not like,
that's why I said it's so risky. Like, I mean, there's a high reward chance, but also it's like you said, it's so uncertain, and it also just doesn't make sense to me. Like I have a friend who's like an expert. Like when I tell you, he has like a board of like everything related to Bitcoin, and I just like still don't understand. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And even single stock is risky too. I do a lot of like penny stocks sometimes. I'm starting to get out of the single stock, penny stock game a little bit more and more, as I'm realizing how much better the actual like ETF, the mutual funds, stuff like that are. EFT, sorry. And mutual funds, because those are basically a guaranteed win. I mean, I lost a few grand on, it was Workhorse. I'm sure somebody else has heard of that stock. They were supposed to get this big contract with USPS. I had about $1,000, $2,000 in it, and it was going up. I mean, I was like almost 100%, 110% on my money, and I should have sold it. And I was, oh no, they're going to get this contract. The day they didn't get the contract, the thing went down. And I was like, there it goes. So I started going more into the mutual fund game. And I mean, I've seen both sides. I've seen the loss, and I've also seen some pretty big wins too. I started investing when the pandemic started. So I just now sold them because of the tax lot. If you wait a year, it's a lot less capital gain tax. And I had JetBlue and Murphy's Oil, and they both got me over 110% in a gain because I bought them at the very bottom of the pandemic, and I sold JetBlue a little while ago and Murphy's recently in the past week. And it was just one of those things where, so I've seen both sides of it. And honestly, the mutual fund game is way more safe, way more secure. And it's pretty much a guaranteed win, but it's going to be a smaller payout. But even if your money makes 10%, that's a lot better than making negative 0.3 for inflation or whatever the rate of inflation is. Oh, that's what I was saying earlier. People that listen are probably like, this guy's all over the biggest financial mistake I ever made was having a large lump sum in a savings account. Because if we would have had that in like a safe, like the S&P 500, like Fidelity version or whatever mutual funds, we would have had so much more money to put down on our house. And it was in there for, probably like, I mean, I was 15 when I started saving, but obviously once we got married, it started growing a lot faster. It was in there for probably 5 years. And it could have done so much better in a mutual fund. I mean, we would have been able to pay for probably almost half of our house versus like 20%. Yeah, because it's crazy, like the amount of what compound interest does.
Yeah, it's so weird. Like, I don't know why I don't know if it's like a generational thing, but even growing up, like, my parents and my family are like, well, people don't talk about money. Like, people don't talk about their salaries or whatever, or like even financial, advice and whatnot. And I feel like I wish someone would have told me back in high school, like, invest your money, and rather than just having it like sit in the bank account, like that would have opened my eyes so much, even in college, even if when I didn't even have that much money, like even if I set aside like $30 a month or something to put towards something, like that could have grown like so much, like, and Yeah, I feel like it's really important for young people to kind of to understand how powerful it is to just have the discipline to take the risk to invest in something, because I wish somebody would have told me that sooner. You know, rather than just having money collecting dust and, like you said, decreasing in value with inflation. So
yeah. And it's one of those things too, where habits and the discipline, if people that say, oh, when I make more, I'll save, like, no.
Yeah.
Start now. I don't care if you only save $5 a month or $5 a week, whatever it may be, but it's the habit of putting money away that now $5 has an opportunity to be 5,000, and you do it because you have that habit. You've created that mental habit. Yeah, I couldn't tell you how many friends I have that have gained more and more money over the years as we get older, and they get promotions, they get in their job longer, and they have less and less, because more and more means you have a bigger available line of credit, so you can borrow more. And it's unfortunate to see. And, you know, some people are happy that way. I mean, my parents live paycheck to paycheck. They're happy. Good for them. You know, we've both had our arguments on both sides of it, and I'm not going to tell them how to live their lives. I'm not going to tell anybody how to live their lives. I'm telling you what I've done, what I've experienced, and I'm very happy the way I've done it. I know it works. Not saying I'm the most successful guy I know, but it certainly has helped me become happy. You know, there's no stress, and stress is one of those big indicators. You know, my wife, same thing. She's not stressed. We come home, we just hang out. We have like 15 bird feeders in the yard. We watch the birds or play with the dogs. You know, we just sit down, we talk, we unplug, and it's nice. You know, it's nice to not sit down and go, oh, damn, we forgot to pay this, or, oh, we have this payment. It takes me like 3 minutes to pay the bills. I remember watching my mom when I was a kid sit down and take like a whole Saturday morning to pay bills.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Like bring out like a big notebook. Like my mom used to do the same thing.
Yes. Oh my God, that's so funny. Yeah. I remember being a kid and watching that, and I was, oh my God, am I going to have to do this when I'm older? This is terrible. And thankfully we don't. We have an electric bill, a gas bill, and a mortgage, you know? Like, wow. That's really it. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I mean, it's interesting, like thinking about it from a stress and a worry perspective. Like if you're someone has so much debt and it just gets worse and worse, like that stress affects every area of your life. And stress is also like the root cause of disease. Like stress is dis-ease, right? It's dis-ease in your body. And stress is always going to manifest. It's always going to catch up to you. So if you're somebody that just has this mountain of debt, and it kind of just lingers, like I said, it's that monster that gets bigger and bigger, then you're stressed, then your immune system weakens, then you crash, then you burn, then you're not able to do as much as you want to do. And it's like this vicious cycle. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about. It's like, wow, money kind of sucks when you think about, you know, like debt and the hold that it has over us as a society. But if you can find a way to manage it, like even if it's a small amount, like you said, if you can find a way to do that, just to get into the habit of it, then, you know, that'll become like a normal feeling for you to say, okay, like I'm putting this much away per month, and like this is just a part of who I am. This is just what I do. You get to choose if money's going to be a liability or an asset to you in your life. You know, it's up to you what you do with it. You have the choice to go finance a new car. No one's going to tell you can't. I can promise you that the people at the car dealer want you to finance. I have back like when I first bought my first car, if you had, I mean, I'm only 24, but this is 8 years ago now. If you had cash, people were like, oh yeah, sure, come on in, like we'll give you a deal. Now they want you to finance because they get all sorts of kickbacks from the bank and all sorts of other bullshit. It's a whole scam. We tried to buy a car a while ago, and I was gonna give them cash, and they're like, well, you know, if we did this work this, I was like, no, like I'm not. I just laughed and ended up buying it. But it's one of those things where all they're gonna do is encourage you to go deeper and deeper into debt. Oh yeah. And you know what's interesting too? I don't know if you've noticed this, but I feel like, and I read something about a month ago that somebody shared on Instagram, where it's like, I don't know as a society if we're headed this way, but it kind of seems like renting is becoming just like the norm now for people's living situation, where it's becoming harder to like buy a home. And even places I've gone to visit, like apartment complexes, they don't have an option to buy. It's just to lease. And it's like you're stuck in this trap of just renting, leasing, and you have nothing to show for it. And I read this article, I'll have to see if I can find it, but it was kind of saying how these huge companies are building these complexes in these places just for the sole purpose of knowing that they're going to continue to be able to make more money off of people, raising the price of the rent every single month. And it just becomes, that also contributes to the debt cycle, especially for people in our generation, because it makes it so hard to save, like if you're doing that on top of everything else. Yeah, you know, and
it's can I say something political on your show? Do you mind?
Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. So the whole tax the rich thing logically is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And I'm not a far right or far left. I'm pretty down the middle on a lot of things, but the tax the rich thing is one of the dumbest things I've heard, because who owns all the buildings that the unrich, aka the poor, the lower, the middle class are in? The rich guy. He owns that building. Who owns all the companies? The rich guy. You try. I say try because these guys know how to avoid taxes. Like it's actually not hard. I mean, you'd be amazed how easy it is to avoid paying some tax.
Yeah.
I forget. There's like the tax code book is like over 1,000 pages, and I think only 16 of those pages are on like paying tax. The rest of it's how to avoid it. So that information's out there to anybody. Don't quote me on those numbers, but crazy like that. But you can't tax these people. And even if you could, everything that you make harder for them, they just raise the wage. They're not going to lose money. I promise you. They're not the guys losing money at the end of the day. So to logically say, oh, tax the rich, they're going to give to the poor, it just doesn't work like that. They're just going to take more and raise rents and raise prices, raise consumer goods. All that stuff is going to get more and more expensive. And that's one of those things where, again, your choices kind of leads you to where you are and where your stance is on that. Because if you've only ever grown up in an apartment, which a lot of people do, you don't really see the other side of that. You don't really see like the hey, we can get out of this. When you grow up in an environment, you're kind of just a product of your environment sometimes. But there's always those few people, Mark Wahlberg, Chris Rock, all these people, these famous people that are multimillionaires now that have came from the hood and gotten out of it, and anybody can do it. It's extremely hard. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with some people start a little bit behind the 8 ball. And something that one of my friends said one time that I thought was really good. He said it on one of my podcasts. I asked him, I was like, well, what do you think people that start back there should do? Because you don't really have a super good role model or an influence. He was like, honestly, YouTube. Find some really good role models on YouTube. And that was something I did when I was a little younger. And it significantly changed the course of my thinking for the better. I mean, some of those motivational videos on YouTube, as corny and cheesy as they may be, it lit a fire in me. I used to listen to them as I worked out, like not even just sitting down. Like I would work out and no music. It was those things playing because it just fired me up. And it was one of those things where, wow, you're not stuck being where you are. You're not stuck being who you are. You can do or be anything you want to be, but you have to take the first few steps. You have to get rid of your consumer bullshit debt. Like there's obviously good debt, right? Quote, good debt, like passive income, whatever that people like to argue with Dave Ramsey about all the time. But you get it, you're on.
Yeah, it's so funny because I feel the same way about YouTube. Like when I was a kid, YouTube changed my life. Like I learned so much, and I've joked around with my friends at this point too that like you could get a college education on YouTube. I'm almost certain of it. Any kind of skill you want to learn, public speaking, I don't know, whatever it is that you want to learn, like you could learn it all on YouTube, honestly. And there were people that changed my life. Like The Secret was a documentary that I found from watching some girl doing her makeup in her bedroom, talking about that documentary. And that was like the thing that changed my life and like showed me that our thoughts are so powerful. So it's like, you never know like what's gonna lead you. And also, there's so many resources out there, even if you feel maybe like alone in your community or you feel isolated, if you have access to the internet, connect with other people, connect with people that have like a similar vision to you, surround yourself with those kinds of people. And, people always say, oh, well, you're the sum of, the 6 people that you hang around with, level up your friend group. If you're in a space like geographically or physically where you are unable to do that, say you're a kid that's like living at home or, whatever the case may be, find people online. I'm telling you, like find Instagram groups or Facebook groups. Like there's a niche out there for every single thing. Like underwater basket weaving, like there's like a group for that. If that's what you really want to do, like if you can think of it, there's a group of people out there and find that support, because support is like so essential to anything, especially if you're someone, like you said, that wasn't starting off super lucky, that is, kind of trying to make your way through on your own. Just knowing that you're not alone, I think is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of one of those things where you have to change your mindset or else you're never going to think like that. Dan Pena, a lot of people don't like this guy. He's very blunt. I personally love bluntness. I love when people just tell you
What's
exactly
his name? I've never heard of him.
Dan Pena. You've never heard of him because he's censored everywhere because
really?
every third word out of his mouth is fuck. I personally like someone like that that's just going to tell me stop being a pussy and go after it, go do it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like that, but he says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And
Yeah.
it's true, you know, like I look at the people I hang out with, but I also look at the people they hang out with. You know, are they hanging around like people that are out drinking, smoking weed still, and like we're 25 years old trying to buy houses, and these guys are off, you know. Show me your friends and show you your future was one of the best quotes that kind of stuck with me a lot.
It's so funny because this is nothing against like people that I have been friends with in the past, but I've found myself in a position of outgrowing, you know, my friend circle that I had for a while. And just like, I'm like, if I were to hang out with these people, I would feel so out of place now because we have nothing in common. Like, I don't drink anymore. I don't party. Like, I'm trying to start my own business and do all this stuff. And they're still doing, you know, crazy shit that we were doing in college or like years ago. And it's like, I'm like, it doesn't resonate anymore. And if you're someone listening to this and you find yourself in that position, don't feel guilty for taking care of yourself. Like nothing's telling you that you have to, you know, stay friends with these people. And that's a choice. Like you said, you know, everything is a choice, and it's nothing against that person, right? It doesn't take away from them at all. It just means that you guys are on different paths now. And that's something that I've realized is like, I've kind of separated myself from people in my life that were doing stuff that I just knew was going to hold me back. And like, I honestly would just be uncomfortable at this point, 'cause I'm like, I literally have nothing in common anymore.
Yeah. As you grow, some people grow with you. Some people kind of stay where they are, and you can choose if you want to still hang out with those people. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. You know, some people see what they want faster. A lot of people are still trying to figure out what they want. And if that's you, like, that's not a big deal. You know, I thankfully figured out what I wanted at a very young age. And again, I thank the gym for that. Again, like that showed me everything. That gave me the confidence to chase my dreams. That gave me the discipline that I needed to chase my dreams. And it kind of like cleared a path for me to see, like, this is what you want to do. This is how you can do it. And then I started getting into, you know, watching other people do it, learning from other people, you know, some adults that I know, some adults that I don't know via YouTube, all sorts of things like that. And doing this, you know, podcasting, I have mine as well. And having some of the guests I've had on there, I like my podcast is more fitness, business, or like a really good story. You know, people that have had like a different kind of life. I had one guy who was like sexually abused, drug addict parents, and he turned it around. He has his own business and everything, and he's doing really well. So stories like that, you know, business owners, and you can learn a lot from these people. And I always end with one of my favorite question. And I asked you that too, you know, knowing what you know now, what would you tell yourself when you were 18 or 20 years old, depending on how old the guest is? And one of the common answers is have more confidence. And it's true. I think I'm going to do something with those one day, whether it's, you know, a short book or put them all together in a clip. Like, I want to do something with all the answers that I get from that one day, because though that's one of the most powerful questions I've ever heard. I actually I don't know if I made it up or what, but when I started asking people that, and getting some of the answers I was getting, it was really cool to hear that. And that's when you put somebody on the spot and kind of give them the, hey, what would you have done differently? You know?
Yeah. And it's so powerful too, to just hear, you know, different people's perspectives. And even on this podcast, I've had so many different kinds of people on here, like, and it's insane to hear, you know, their story and their journey. I've had people from this side of the spectrum all the way to the other, you know, and it's so eye-opening to kind of hear, you know, people coming into their power and like stepping into their purpose and their potential. And everyone that I've had on is someone that's like so firm in who they are, which is something that I love. And you included, like people that are so confident and also so like authentically themselves. And it's not something that happens overnight, but I think it's so empowering to see that, because to me, I think just such a cool thing to see in someone is to just see how authentic they are. Someone that's like unafraid to just completely be themselves. Like, I have so much respect for that. And, you know, that's something that I try to do, is to just be authentically myself. And it's like, okay, some people aren't going to like me. That's fine. But I'm going to be myself, because I know that once I step into that, I'm going to attract the kinds of people that like do resonate with what I have to say, and that do understand what I'm sharing, and that do want to hear, you know, my story and my experience. So, I don't know if you've noticed that too on your podcast, but just like authenticity to me is such a sign of strength, and I commend it so much.
Absolutely. And I think that comes from confidence too. You
Yeah,
know, like if
exactly.
you're not confident in who you are, you're not going to be authentic. You're going to be what you think people should see you as, or whatever you want to impress the people you're around. You know, impress them by being who you are. You know, everybody does something different. Everybody's story is valuable. You know, I've learned so many things from so many people. That's one of the reasons for my podcast is I think everybody has a story, and you can learn something from everybody, whether it's a good lesson or a bad lesson. Some of the worst people that have come through my life, I've learned the most from, by being, okay, I don't want to be that guy, or I don't want to act like that, or this is what I shouldn't do with money, or this is what I shouldn't do when I'm in the gym, you know, things like that. So just pay attention to people and look around at the people you're around, and just say, are you constantly looking at them going, this is what we're doing again, or this is how we're doing? Like, start talking about investing or starting businesses or ideas, future goals. You know, a lot of people don't know how to have that conversation. Just, it's as simple as asking, hey, what kind of goals do you have? You know, what do you want to do? You know, have you ever thought about investing, or do you have any idea how much money everybody wants to make or earn more money? Like, just ask your friend, you know how much money we could earn if we started investing, and see what they say. You know, maybe you could be the change in your friend group or family, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that confidence is really the main thing that allows people to be authentic. And sometimes all it takes is like one person to make a ripple effect, like, you know, to make a change around for the people around them. It's like if one person sees you kind of really doing your own thing and being super comfortable in it, then that can empower them to say, you know what? Why not me? Why don't I try and do that too? Why don't I like explore my passion a little bit more and tap into what I want to do a little bit more? And maybe you could be that person for your friend group. Maybe your friends are also thinking about investing, or they're thinking about doing something, but they're like too afraid to say it because they feel like, oh, well, this person's going to like judge me or whatever. So you never know, honestly, until you put yourself out there. You really never know.
Absolutely. And, you know, this was something I said on the podcast we did before too, is I think everybody knows and wants to do better, whether it's becoming sober or start working out. Every time I get around people, I notice like we start talking about working out. People want to learn more. People want to exercise because they know it's the right thing to do, but they have to have somebody else kind of go first, or show them the way, or introduce them to it, or give them some information on it, because naturally we just kind of do what we know. We do what's safe. We do what we're not going to get embarrassed by or hurt by. So to start working out is kind of, whoa, you know, I'm going to start working out. But when you're around somebody that does it all the time, well, this guy can do it. Why can't I do it? You know, I couldn't tell you how many times I've said that to myself throughout my life is, well, somebody else did this. Why can't I do it?
I do the same thing. Like, even for, you know, like starting this podcast and starting, you know, trying to grow on TikTok, like as silly as it might seem, I'm like, well, if this person's doing it, then why not me? Like, there's nothing special about this person. They were just consistent with it, and they just stuck through long enough to see it through. And that's something that really motivates me, is like realizing, well, there's nothing special about the person that has your goals, right? It just means that they found a system that worked for them, and they were diligent with it. They were consistent, and they had the discipline to stay with it. That's something that like really motivates me whenever I start to doubt myself.
Something else too that's really helped me is look at everybody equal. Like, even people that are super like, quote, successful or very high up in your organization, whatever it may be, look at them equal. You know, give them the respect that they deserve, but look at them like they're you, because they were you someday. You know, if you're a younger person like us, you know, if you're a 24-year-old talking to a 45, 50-year-old who's the CEO of some company, they were in your shoes one day, and ask them, hey, what did you do when you were my age? How do I get there? If that's what you want. Not everybody wants to go that route, but respect everybody, even people that you think you're doing better than, because you could be the person that changes their life. You know, you never know how you can positively impact somebody. So I don't know. I've always been one of those, give people the respect that they deserve, the respect that they earn. You know, obviously there's some people where you just kind of write them off, but you don't have to disrespect them. You just don't pay any attention to them.
No, I think that's so important to not put people on a pedestal, like, because when you do that, I think it also subconsciously affirms to you that like, oh, that's not me. Like, I could never be at that point because this person's like so successful. You know, but then you start to view them as just like a human being, which they are. you kind of like bridge that gap between where you're trying to go and where they're at. I don't know. For me, at least, like that's something that I think, like, even if I have someone bigger coming on the show, you know, rather than being nervous and saying, oh my God, this person's like such a big deal, like whatever. It's like, no, you know what? They're going to share their story. Like I'm excited to speak with them. They're excited to speak with me. Like, don't belittle yourself in that way, but also, you know, obviously like be respectful, but, yeah, that's my 2 cents with that.
No, I mean, I totally agree. It's one of those things where we all put our pants on the same way every day. You know, there's everybody started somewhere. We were all little kids at one point and we all just kind of grew. We had different experiences throughout life that kind of led us down our paths. But at the end of the day, we're all people. We're all humans. Everybody makes mistake. Ask the CEO, what's the biggest fuck up you've ever had? I guarantee you he'll tell you because he probably learned the most from that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, don't be afraid to ask people those questions. Don't be afraid to talk to people. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen somebody just stumble over their words because I went to a Patriots game. I was on the field at the home opener of the 2019 Super Bowl, and Donnie Wahlberg walked by. I'm a pretty big Wahlberg fan. Wow. I like Donnie Wahlberg. I literally said, Donnie, hey, and he shook my hand and we talked for a second, and he kept on his way. You know, I have a picture to prove it too. It was awesome.
That's so cool.
He was a wicked cool, humble guy. Like I would absolutely say he's like absolutely what you would expect him to be. Just really nice, genuine, like stop, talk to me, talk to the friends I was with, shook all our hands, took a picture with us and went on his way. But my buddy didn't even know what to say. He was like, that's what happens. Like you get kind of shell shocked, but at the end of the day, he's just a dude, you know?
Yeah. We're all human.
My heart did beat a little faster. I'm not going to lie. Like when he stood next to me and like, we were like this close talking and he shook my heart did start beating a little faster, but I was like, he's just a person. Like, hey, Donnie, how are you? And reached out, shook his hand. It was pretty cool experience.
That's so cool. That's funny because this is like a whole other tangent, but I don't know if I told you I was on American Idol like back in high school.
Yeah.
Did I tell you this?
We went through that.
Yeah. So it was the same kind of thing for me where I was like, okay, I'm not going to be like, you know, jumbling over my words. Like when I met everyone, I was just like super conversational with them, and all the judges were like so nice. Like Ryan Seacrest was really conversational, and it was because in my head I was like, okay, I'm not going to put this person on a pedestal. They're a human being. Like we all, you know, do the same thing. We wake up, you know, we go to bed. And so that kind of helped me like not be as nervous around like people that I was like idolizing or, you know, looking up to. So even if you find someone like in your circle or someone that like has the results that you want, I think my advice would be just don't put them on a pedestal. Like respect them, but know that it's also possible for you to get there, and let them be an example of a way to guide you there rather than to be like, oh my God, this person has it all together. Like there's no way I could attain that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. You know, and again, it comes down to the choice. You can sit there and you can say, I'll never get to where they are. Or you can sit there and say, how do I get to where you are? Because I respect what you've done. I want to be there too. Maybe you don't get the chance to talk to that person. You know, maybe that person is kind of quote out of your realm or whatever you may say, not in your location. You don't have a way to contact them, but you know, watch their YouTube videos, watch what they talk about, listen to podcasts that they've been on. Most people that are pretty successful have spoken somewhere about their story at some time. Yeah. And if you can't find that person, find somebody similar. There's more than one way to do things. There's a 1,000 ways to do the same thing and you get the same result. Or sometimes a little bit varied, but that's something I've always kind of told everybody I've ever met is, you know, don't get mad that the instructions that my wife and I are putting a piece of gym equipment together, and she's very like, we'll go by the instructions. I just know what it's supposed to look like. So I'm just going to do this. And she, you know, the instructions say this, but there's more than one way to put this thing together. That's how they recommend it.
I'm the same way with like furniture and stuff, by the way. I'm like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I don't need the instructions. I'm like, I'll just figure it out. I've like always been that way, and it'll still get done. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be like, no, I think that's really great advice is like, just because like one person's path, right, doesn't mean that has to be your path too. And I think something else just to kind of leave people with is like any person who has the results that you want, like you said, if you listen to them speaking about it, has dealt with rejection or, you know, a struggle or some kind of setback or road bump. And also people that are like overnight successes, there's usually years of work that they've had, you know, before they had that breakthrough. I don't think I've heard of anyone that was like legitimately an overnight success. I've encountered.
Unless you win the lottery or something.
Yeah,
you
literally.
Know? It's just not. Yeah, it's just not real.
Yeah.
Something I'm gonna butcher these numbers, but they're gonna be pretty close. Michael Jordan had the opportunity from like high school to his end of his career, opportunity to sink the game-winning shot, I think 1,100 times, and he missed like 800 of those, and he got it 300 of those. And I'm butchering these numbers, but it's close enough. And you don't talk about the 800 misses. You talk about the times he was successful in it. That's what you hear about. So just know that there's always going to be more failure than success. I couldn't tell you how many ideas I've come out with for my business that have just been a complete waste of time, money, effort. But then again, you can look at it and say, was it a complete waste, or did I learn a different way to not do something I'm trying to do? I learned, all right, this doesn't work, so we're going to completely scrap this and we're going to try this. But there's been, I don't even know where to start with how many times I've thought of something and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It's that and start over.
No, and also like, rejection and just like setbacks. Like I've dealt with so much of that. Like even with, back with when I was singing, like there was so much rejection of people saying no to your face, and I would still, show up and do it. And even to this day, like I have some ideas, I have things that I've put out there that I'm like, oh, well, this kind of flopped. Like this wasn't great, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop. I had like a mindset course that I launched like last fall, and then it didn't really do that well. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to like relaunch this and like revamp it. And it's like you said, it's like, it's not a failure if you view it as a lesson. Like there's always something to be gained, even from something that in the moment might seem like, well, shit, this is like not what I was expecting. Yeah. So I kind of want to, what's that? Go ahead.
I think the only time that you fail is when you quit. If you didn't get it the first time, you just keep going, and eventually you're going to get it. You didn't fail until you gave up on it, because you just learned another way to not do it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like, how many, like you could be, I always say this too, like you could be this close to a breakthrough and you could give up right before you were about to like turn that corner, but you just can't see it because you're not there yet. It's like, just keep going with whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you're doing, just keep going, because you never know when that point's going to be. And even the people that you're idolizing and they looked up to, what was the common thing? They never gave up. That's probably what got them to where they were. Persistence and consistency. Like that's the common theme, I
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So I kind of want to give you a chance here to leave my listeners with any kind of last minute tips that you would give them, or advice, or any, last minute things you want to throw in.
Ooh, one thing I'd say for sure is to keep an open mind. I know we talked on it a few times, but there's a lot more than one way to do things. So if you kind of hit that roadblock, don't get stuck on that one roadblock. Don't get stuck trying to get over this one hurdle. Try to look at a different way to do this. There's, whether it's fitness, finances, there's more than one way to do things. I would say, if you're kind of starting a little bit behind the 8 ball, start with saving $5, because at the end of the day, money doesn't make the world go round, but money kind of makes the world go around, because it affects your stress. It affects all that. Like I said, it doesn't buy you happiness, but if you don't have the financial freedom to chase your passions, chase your goals, because it costs money, even this podcast, it costs money to buy a microphone. It costs money to buy a laptop. So you have to have money, but use it as a tool. Don't use it as a means to an end, I guess. Is what I'm trying to say. Instead of using money as like I just need more and more and more, use money as kind of a means to an end to reach the goals that you want to reach.
Yeah. Using it in a productive way that's kind of fueling that long-term vision, I think. Yeah. I think it all goes back to just having a goal and being able to have the discipline to work towards it, whatever it is in your life. If it's financially, if it's, with your fitness goals, with your mindset, nutrition, whatever it is, like that I think is such a key takeaway. And it's so cool to have seen the connection with finance to this before, because I've never like even thought about that in my mind, but it actually makes so much sense thinking about it that way.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was so fun. I always say every guest I have, I'm like, this was like my favorite episode, but this was so good. Like this was so fun. Thank you. So I want to give you a chance to kind of like shamelessly promote yourself. So where people can find you, check out your page, your podcast, your clothing company too. Go ahead and plug away.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. So my clothing brand is RN Fitness Gear. You can find it rnfitnessgear.com. Instagram is @rnfitnessgear. My podcast is Choices by Nick Krol, Krol, 1L, not 2, like the comedian guy there that everybody always asks me if I know. And my personal Instagram is at Nick_Krol, Krol. So thank you again for having me. This was so much fun. Like I said, having you on my show is my favorite one I've done so far. So looking forward to staying connected and hopefully doing more of these in the future.
Yeah, we should probably like in 6 months or something, we should do another one. So I feel like we'll have more to talk about. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for coming on, guys. I'm going to leave everything in the description. I'll also leave your episode that I came on in the description so people can check that out if they want to listen to it. Check out his podcast. It's amazing. He has awesome guests too. Like I was looking through your list, such a cool array of people that you have on. So definitely check that out. Check out his clothing company, the whole shebang. And Nick, thank you so much again. This was awesome.
Yeah, again, thank you. I love talking. So next time, hopefully 6 months from now, we'll get on this again.
Yeah.